Look at us now, tip to tip.
Ooh, Jesus.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita?
Yes!
My God!
To us, doing what we love. But it's time to bang.
You couldn't catch us in the street without a ton of reefer. That's like Malcolm X catching the jungle fever. What's up, everybody? How you doing on this Valentine's Day? Yes, I know a bunch of you virgins are not going to really be celebrating today, but us married men, we're also not going to be celebrating. Hello, it's Morning Kombat right here, joining you on this Friday. Going to get you ready for the UFC weekend and, of course, talking about all of the news in combat sports. My name is Luke Thomas. I am merely one half of your hosting duo. I join you from the capital of Estados Unidos right here in Washington, D.C., joined by this guy who I'm guessing is wearing the hat because he didn't shower this morning. He's the king of chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It's Brian Campbell. How you doing, Brian Campbell?
Thank you, the king of CT. I appreciate that very much. I like that you opened the show with an MLK reference because we all know, Luke, he was the Dom Cruise of civil rights. So that is a hell of a shout out and comparison here. But it's Friday. Then people out there ain't got shit to do. Maybe Saul's on a roof somewhere in Louisville, but I'm happy to be back at it. Let's bang. By the way, I was on MMA Fighting's Below the Links yesterday. Did you see that meltdown? Jed Meshew had a Luke Thomas-like meltdown yesterday.
No, I missed it. What happened?
Over his anger that Makhachev might be fighting Topuria. It was epic.
Why was it worth melting down over?
I mean, that's what you're going to have to ask Jed. But, you know, you Georgians seem to get very upset on air when talking about Georgians. So, you know, there it is. You know?
Yeah, but Jed probably also had done Galaxy Gas between takes. So, you know, who knows what kind of mind frame he was in. Hey, let's remind everyone, thumbs up if you're watching. Thank you so much for watching, just the same. Subscribe if you would be so kind. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Of course, you can see all our socials there. You can also get the Brian Campbell experience on YouTube, as well as my own personal channel there as well. Hey, and you can follow me on Blue Sky. BC, I kind of like Blue Sky. People bag on it, but and it does have problems. It's got real problems.
Do
But
they have power slap rights on that, or was that actually that Rumble? Right?
I haven't seen any power slap on it. Also, it's less about what Blue Sky has versus what it doesn't, and what it doesn't have is the Third Reich in my comments. And
Yeah,
for that reason,
I kind of got fed up yesterday about the racism in combat sports, and like a lot of people floated a WTF type of tweet. I didn't expect that many people justifying racism and telling me to stop crying. It was an indictment. It was an indictment on society, but here we are, still fighting the good fight. It's okay to love one another in this world, people. All right, it's not a bad idea. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Listen, you start saying things like seatbelts don't matter, you end up in weird places afterwards. All right, but as I mentioned,
hit by a train. You know what I mean?
That's right. On the docket today, there is a UFC Fight Night card tomorrow, which I know people are there is. Let's be honest, less than zero buzz for. But if you actually look at the card, BC, you know, for the hardcore fan, I actually think there's a lot to like on there.
Dude, bottom line, you put on a main event worth staying up for, you win with a Fight Night Apex card, in my opinion. That's not a bad main event. I'm in. Let's go.
Fair enough. Let's bring in the third member of the team here. It's Bong Island Luke. Bong Island Luke, do you share my assessment that, listen, we're not calling tomorrow's card UFC 300, but it's got some quality.
No Riyadh, right? It's no Riyadh.
It's no Riyadh.
I mean, it's no UFC Saudi, but
what is?
It's a good card. You got Calvin Kattar, Yusuf Zalal in the co-main. I like that
great
fight a lot. Adolfo Vieira, Andre Petrosky. That'll be fun. The Bonfim brothers. There's a lot to like.
Bonfims. Let's go.
Right? I was gonna say, like, don't besmirch the Bonfim bros. They'll give you something in the end,
Calvin Kattar, by the way, plus 335. Little disrespectful. Had to take a flyer on him.
I want to circle back to that when we talk about the fight, but I appreciate you tuning in here and joining us along the show and everything. So, main card minute and all that good stuff.
Appreciate it.
BC, anything? Do you have any Valentine's Day plans with your significant other today?
No, we'll be, hanging out as a family this evening, which will be nice. But I think I under-delivered today, so I'm gonna have to, Gonna have to work my way back, but that's life. We live, we learn, we take L's, and we move forward. But happy to share the love on this 14th with everybody else out there. Also, Luke, shout out to Toiletries, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not currently in a sponsorship agreement with them, but
then you know what? Then put them in the AG1 glass, Luke, and drink it up. All right, because that's what I'm doing right now.
That's your thing. That is not my thing. That is your thing. But I was going to say, no, I had a good working relationship, but I'm not currently in a deal with them.
Okay.
By the way, last thing before we start today's show, I saw MK Superfan last night. W. Kamau Bell. He did his one-man show, his stand-up show. Yeah. At the Kennedy Center last night. So I went down there and I went with a buddy of mine who I used to train with in jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt now. We went down there. I think I had too many gummies. I got real high for that show.
Wow. Did he make any Cosby jokes, Luke?
He did. Actually, yes, he did. He made he made a few Cosby jokes. For folks who don't know, he made a Cosby documentary for Showtime back in the day. So he did make some of those. That was pretty great. Also, BC, the only thing I'll say about that is that was the first time I've ever gone to an old person's event. And what I mean by that is it was an entertainment event. Like, you sell tickets, blah, blah, blah. I and my friend was 41. We were the youngest people there. And it was packed. It was packed with nothing but people with grayer hair than me, which is saying something.
So was the Sphere for Dead & Company, but
there was way more young people. Dude, no. I was thinking about that. There were way more young people at that show. Way more, relatively speaking, anyway.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
All right. With that in mind, let's get this process started. Let's get the show going. Topic number 1. We'll talk about the UFC fights here in just a second, but I actually feel like, and I think BC agrees, this is a little bit more of a pressing matter, or certainly a little bit more of a newsworthy item. So, at UFC 312, Sean Strickland loses to Dricus du Plessis via unanimous decision. And as we talked about previously, it's not just that he lost, but that it was a decline from the previous performance that he had when they fought the first time. And then you could see his coach, Eric Nicksick, making entreaties to him between rounds to do more. Well, Extreme Couture head coach Nicksick then went and did the Ariel Helwani show earlier this week, where he was pretty critical of Strickland's performance. Subsequent to that, Sean Strickland takes to social media and says that he and Eric Nicksick were and remain good friends, but will probably be no longer in his corner. Now, before I throw this to you, BC, let's set the table if we can for folks who may not have seen it or need a refresher. Let's first, if we can, Long Island Luke, let's play some of Eric Nicksick's comments, and then we'll go from there.
So obviously in the aftermath, there's been a lot of criticism thrown his way, in large part because he's such a boisterous and kind of outspoken, outlandish personality, but he also, not just when talking about regular stuff, if you want to call it regular stuff, politics and all this stuff, he says things like, he's going to fight to the death. And obviously that's not really what we saw on Saturday. Do you think that the criticism is warranted? Do you think that it has been fair?
Yeah, of course. I do. I do. I mean, we have to be real. Like it just was a very underwhelming performance in an opportunity to fight for a title. There's people in this sport that never even realize that potential to ever even be an opportunity to fight for a championship. That should be enough to get you motivated, to get you off the couch. So, it just to me was we didn't perform. So that's all. It's on all of us. It's on me as a coaching staff. It's on Sean, and I think he needs to evaluate what he wants to do in this sport. If it's just to make money, then that's great. Let us know. I want to coach world champions. So my motivations are different. So I think that, just to kind of show up and do that and not really back it up, just to me was just kind of uninspiring.
Now, BC, before we go to this one more time, let's play what Sean Strickland had to say. Long Island Luke, it's a long clip. We don't need the whole thing, but he'll address the Nicksick stuff off the top, and then we'll go to BC.
All right, guys, keep tagging me about this whole Eric thing, and God damn it, because I like Eric. He's a friend of mine, and he's going to continue to be a friend of mine. Will he probably be in my corner? Probably not. We have so many great guys at Extreme, Nate, Ray Cepho. We have so many savages that I would love to corner me. But, you know, man, that entire fight camp was just a struggle. Like, it was a fucking struggle. And, guys, we all have excuses as to why we didn't win or why we won and we shouldn't have won. We all fucking have excuses, and they don't fucking matter. The only reason why I'm making this video is because Eric had to go do a fucking podcast and become an influencer. So now I got to, like, all right, kind of explain myself. Opportunity. And not just with fighting. Opportunity never comes when it's supposed to. It doesn't matter what the circumstances, what the situation is. You will never wake up and say, no, today is the perfect day for opportunity.
Okay. He goes on to sort of discuss he had various hardships in the camp. He did not really say that was the reason why he lost, but we all know that obviously fighters go into fights with a lot of lingering issues. He actually was in Medellin, Colombia to get a stem cell therapy, BC. To heal was an arm issue, which he did say was healed, but it was in the back of his mind. He was kind of messed
broken
up.
Bone. Yeah, broken bone, staph. He had legitimate setbacks this camp.
Okay, so here's the question. Did Eric Nicksick, in your judgment, go too far?
It's close. It's close to the line for sure. I can understand everybody's potentially being upset that he did it publicly, that he did it on the podcast. And I think a lot of people are closing in on one of the comments Nicksick said about how I coach champions here. And people are looking at that as him going like, okay, Sean, if you're not on the championship level anymore, you're not good enough for me. And that's, in my opinion, not what he's saying at all. We talk a lot in this sport about for being such a tough sport, for being one of the, you can die in there. Straight up, you can die in there. It's also one of the most sensitive sports. Do you know what this is to me? This is tough love. This is tough love from a coach who clearly is at the end of his rope when it comes to trying to motivate somebody who he knows and believes he could get more out of. And for whatever reason, and I'm not saying Strickland didn't have good excuses as to why he wasn't 100%, and I'm certainly not questioning his toughness when he said he broke his nose 3 times in that round and just kept resetting it and gutting it out through the pain. That's not what I'm talking about here. But did Strickland deserve criticism in a rematch that not a lot of fans thought should have happened necessarily, where he did have an opportunity to take a very close fight the first time around and regain the title, get back into that position? Was he underwhelming? Yes, he was. Did Nicksick and even Poatan in the corner have to, were they shocked by that? Where was Nicksick trying to will him to the performance deep inside that he knew that was in there, and Strickland couldn't pull the trigger and let it go? That's all true. So if Nicksick already felt potentially after a really bad camp where, let's say, he couldn't get through to his fighter, that this may be the end of their relationship anyway, him going into the break glass in case of necessary move, which I get the controversy. I get did he have to do it publicly? I'm wondering if this great coach just looked at the situation and thought, the only way we are going to work moving forward is if this guy makes dramatic changes. So let me challenge him publicly, knowing it could go in the other direction, right? That's how I look at it for Eric Nicksick. Is it the preferred method every coach should go in this situation? No, but we obviously don't know the deep dynamics of the relationship beyond hearing Strickland say so often how key Nicksick has been for him to turn around his career, his life, and to mature into the person he is today. So clearly Nicksick has been a voice that is an important one in Strickland's corner and life. So I'm going to give a coach who we know through this industry, we respect, a benefit of the doubt in that regard, that him playing this note, him pushing this button was for a clear purpose. And Strickland certainly has the decision to make, which clearly he has, whether that was too far, whether that was an embarrassment, whether that was the severance in their relationship. But I don't think Nicksick does that haphazardly. I thought it was a calculated move by him to truly challenge his fighter to dig even deeper, to pull out performances that coach who's with him every day knows that it's in there. This isn't me getting back at Strickland for years of him saying ridiculous things. Like, I respect the hustle. To some degree, I respect this babyface turn he's trying to do when he grabbed the microphone, and what he's doing with this video to show people. The parts of that video that we didn't play was a long, drawn-out sort of inspirational rant from Strickland. So if we're looking at a sport that's life and death in the cage, but we can't take the criticism of a coach who believes and loves in his fighter. Luke, I'm going to be honest here. I think this is much to do about nothing. And I know on the flip side, people get mad at us sometimes. They go, oh, you guys bring up racism. You guys are soft in a sport that's cage fighting. Well, if we're in a cage fighting sport, can a coach not challenge his own man after a clearly disappointing performance? In the end, Luke, I've got no issues with what happened with Nicksick. I think he took a calculated gamble and he knew which direction it might go.
I don't have much to add to that. Now, I did my live chat yesterday, BC, and at the time of my live chat, this is true, I had not spoken to Eric Nicksick. Yesterday evening, I did speak to him a little bit about some of this stuff. I'm not really going to divulge what he told me, but my opinion doesn't really change one way or the other. I don't listen. Is there an argument to be made that, could this have been done in private? Did it need to happen necessarily in the way that it did? I don't know if it needed to happen the way that it did. That seems fine if you want to make that argument, but it's like, I don't understand some of the pushback I've seen Nicksick get. Sean Strickland's entire public personality and the way he wants to be perceived is about being a brave and daring truth teller in ways that are painful for the recipients of what he has to say to hear, sometimes intentionally, but sometimes not. Either way, though, unfiltered, right? We're just going to tell you what's on my mind. And like the rest of the world is just apparently supposed to just take that. And I don't understand. First of all, we're not even exactly doing it the other way around, but even if this were that, it would still be completely justified. This is, if you are going to conduct personal and private business with the world and the way in which you interface with the world as being a brave and bold truth teller, unfiltered, unrestrained by normal modes of discourse or societal expectations, and then a coach gets out there after you have I won't say a horrifying performance, but a really bad performance. If we're talking about like title performances, especially in rematches, this is not as bad necessarily, BC, as like Chael Sonnen kind of collapsing in the rematch with Anderson Silva, but it's not great. It's a pretty bad performance. How is Nicksick out of bounds for engaging in a level of candor when that's supposed to be Sean Strickland's entire brand is just candor? Well, okay, here's some candor. This is what you get. But the BC, to me, the bigger issue is, dude, like, listen, if to your point, no one's questioning, is Sean a good fighter? He's a very good fighter. Is Sean a tough guy? Obviously a very tough guy. But something was off, and maybe it was the stuff in the back of his mind about his arm, the staff, the combination of the two. I don't know. But folks forget, man, Eric Nicksick and other coaches, they have to spend big portions of their life sacrificing time away from their family. They have to travel with these guys. They have to do everything. Everybody has a role to play. And there was clearly a breakdown as a team in terms of what they had planned to do and what ultimately happened. And part of that is Sean accepting what role he has in that. Again, somewhat understanding the health conflicts or the health issues that go into it. But at the same time, if everybody on the team who has a role, if portions of them are not upholding what their responsibility is, this becomes a problem for the other members of the team. And people have brought up to me, it's like, well, so some of the guys that Nicksick coaches are not champions. This is true. Most of those are the long-standing guys that he's had in his stable. I can tell you this, like Eric, I didn't ask me to say this or anything, but this is something I've just known from interacting with him. You guys have no idea how many people knock on his door asking him to train them. Like fighters from the UFC in all walks that you cannot possibly imagine. And he has to filter who he has time for and who he doesn't. Clearly, Sean Strickland and Eric Nicksick are on different pages, but going forward, he has to prioritize his time to give it to the projects that I think are the ones that matter the most to him, the ones that, obviously maintaining long-standing relationships. But if you're going to take on new challenges, these have to be worth your time. What are you going to do with your time away from your family? What are you going to do with your time where you're just giving it to work? It has to be to the most productive end. And BC, if Nicksick and Strickland have different views about what his role in the corner should be and what their responsibilities are as a team, maybe it's for the best that they're not necessarily.
I don't think he does this flippantly. I think he does this knowing that this is the last chance. I mean, look, to some degree, and that's Zoe the cat, by the way. Reggie not doing well. We can get into that later, but shout out to Zoe.
I'm sorry to hear that. I hope he's okay.
The OG Zoe, who never shows up down here, but she'll bite at any turn. Luke, ultimately, it's just I think it might be a generational difference. I say this quickly because I made a joke on Between the Links yesterday, and it's true. Like, we grew up in the 80s playing youth sports with like Vietnam vets with like cigarettes rolled up in their sleeve and homemade tattoos telling us shut the hell up and suck it up and, swearing the F word at us in 4th grade. Nowadays, I tried to coach my kids' youth basketball team a few years ago. you can't raise your voice. You can't do anything. I just think things have changed where it's like, maybe there's a new generation of people who look at that as cruel or unnecessary. Look, I've played a lot of team sports in my life, and in a lot of those situations, I was underperforming or not caring. And you know what coaches did to try to get through to you? They just completely ignore you or tell you to leave. I mean, like there's tough love that shakes your cage. Obviously, this was a bad training camp for Strickland. Obviously, it seems Nicksick was really unable to get through to him in ways that they were able to in the past. So sum it up, like we said, this is a last chance attempt at tough love, in my opinion. It is what it is. But is there a topic to be had, Luke? Because even though I'm happy that Strickland did come clean, because I thought it was obvious that he wasn't at his best in this fight. You mentioned you didn't think he looked in the same shape, which might be explainable by the injuries he's had. And I don't like when people lose when it obviously looks like something's wrong and then they try to do the tough fighter thing and they keep it inside. But at the same time, knowing what we known from that Dillashaw loss where he came in with that serious shoulder injury and now can't even lift his arm for the rest of his life and had no chance in that fight. Also, should Strickland have even taken this fight?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So,
I mean, this is the reality, and like fighters are they're just inherently risk takers, right? They're just going to take risk. But this is the reality. If you go into a fight messed up, is there a chance you can win? Of course, there's always going to be a chance. But more often than not, at the elite level, BC, and we're talking the common denominator here would be title fights, right? Because TJ Dillashaw in that fight, it was a title fight opposite Aljamain Sterling. Here we have DDP opposite Sean Strickland. If you're at that level of a fight and you're going in compromised, there's a very good chance you're going to get really hurt. And sure enough, the arm falls out of the socket for TJ Dillashaw, and then look at the nose of Sean Strickland. Again, that's just part of something that could happen in any bout. I understand it. But your chances of that kind of, I won't call it catastrophic, but severe injury or whatever, however you'd like to describe that medically, your chances of that go up exponentially when you go up compromised like that. And it's just a inherent, you know, like this is why everyone needs to be on the same page. This is why the game plan has to be adhered to. This is why all the protocols that they put in place, because none of them will prevent these kinds of things from happening, but they certainly minimize the chances. And it wasn't enough this particular time. Anyway, one thing I also want to say is, like, people are like, I've seen say, well, Eric didn't, you know, he wasn't kind enough to Sean. And I'm like, who has been given more grace than Sean Strickland? Who has been given more latitude than Sean Strickland? Right? We're talking about a guy who had a completely fucked up background, which is, you know, not necessarily uncommon in combat sports, but he already had other people around him, including but not limited to, and at the center of that, Eric Nicksick, trying to create an environment for him where he could thrive, grow, be a better person, contribute to the team. And I think on some level there has been some success at that. And for all the things he says and for all the people that he pisses off, remember, he went after other Extreme Couture coaches at different parts of his UFC run. Like, and he's just been forgiven for all of it. Like they've had to show so much forgiveness, so much grace, so much understanding. Well, I would ask those folks to do the exact same thing for Eric, even if you feel like he overstepped the boundaries here. It's just really weird to me that one guy gets to break all of these norms, expect all of this grace, and then a coach has a rough but candid assessment of it. And now we're breaking all the norms of decorum. There are no norms of decorum. They've been completely shattered. Let's try to understand what the ball game is here. He had a really bad performance. This is one of the very best coaches in the sport. They clearly aren't seeing eye to eye on this. This is what you get. I don't necessarily think it's the biggest scandal.
You know, he did mention Ray Sefo in that gym, but I don't think they'd let a PFL executive come in and coach a UFC corner, would they?
Yeah, they would.
They would.
I don't think they get sideways with Ray. Because
okay.
Don Davis has just been, you know, like you and me, just behind a desk his whole life. But Ray thugged it out. Ray, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Ray's done his time in the ring, so to speak. So I think there's a little bit more respect for what he's done. I could be wrong though. Who knows? They're not gonna let Randy Couture. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
he ain't cornering shit.
Hey, real quick, I saw that Randy Couture's coming out with a new movie, and Big E is in it. a Tori Ewan, you know, our guy Big E.
Yeah, I know Big E.
He's made a real big acting turn of late. He's got a lot of great projects coming up.
He's on some Hulu sitcom as well, I believe.
Yes, Laid, I believe it's called. Shout out to Big E, as always. You would say arguably the best rack in combat sports. You could go that far.
He got some big ass titties. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, I was trying to do it, you know, politely and affirmatively.
I'll say this for Big E. This is a true story. I haven't told the public this. When Barbas died, he texted me.
Amazing.
To wish me, you know, to send his condolences. So
yes,
we love Big E. Big E's the man. We wish him nothing but good things.
And real quick, Reggie's hurting, dude. It's not.
Do you want to tell people what's up? Because you haven't told me this. This is the first time I'm hearing it too.
So he had been eating our Christmas tree and the fake snow on it. We tried everything, sprayed the sprays, got him away from it, and it led to a compromise of his immune system. And then at the same time, simultaneously, he had some teeth that died, and they begin to release a fluid that ultimately led to him getting pneumonia. So he was supposed to have surgery to remove the teeth a few days ago, but his pneumonia is so bad that they pushed it off a week and now 2 weeks. So he has to get a ridiculous amount of breathing treatments and medical care all day. And it's he's hurting. He's a fighter. He's still, you know, 7 years old. He's not too old, Luke, but we're getting a little nervous over here. We're giving him a lot of love and prayer and hope. So if you're a big Reggie J fan out there, let's one love to that guy. But you know, if there's any silver lining in this, he's gone from maligned in this house to beloved through this process. So shout out to Reggie Jackson getting what he deserves. All right.
Yeah. Well, Mr. October, obviously we hope he pulls through, and let us know. We'll keep us posted if you can.
Thank you. And the cats hate, you know cat culture, Luke. If one of them is sick, the other ones just run up on him and hiss in his face and whack him. You know what I mean? Like Zoe's got no love and respect for this guy.
I'm just waiting for that paw to just drill you right in the grill.
She bit my elbow twice while you were talking before. It's a basic instinct style affair that we're having. It's really weird.
Got that prey drive.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Here we go.
All right. Let's go. Topic number 2, BC. Let's get to the fights this weekend if we can. So Jared Cannonier faces Gregory Rodrigues in the main event of Saturday's UFC Fight Night. BC, it is quite obvious that this is a bit of a coming or going fight between an old contender and now a surging new one. Here's what's interesting, BC. Odds makers have Rodrigues as a modest but pretty clear favorite. I mean, certain places have him well above -200. Are they right to give him the edge as being the favorite over the former middleweight contender, or are people still sleeping on the now 40-year-old Cannonier?
Well, it is 2 defeats in a row, one by stoppage that Cannonier's facing. The age is a big part of that too, and has his performances declined along with that, ever since we saw him fight all his way to the title level against Izzy. And I would say yes on that. Excuse me for my constant burping here. But I do really like this crossroads fight, and I do really think Hobocop should at least be a slight veteran, because I love what this matchup offers, and it's the question of, is Cannonier not as far gone as his age and recent performances would tell you, and he's a sneaky underdog here? Or is Robocop, Luke, who's won 5 of 6, as good as somebody who has won 5 of 6 in this division? It's perfect. It's certainly his opportunity to remove Cannonier from the outskirts of that title picture and insert himself. But I still think Cannonier is skilled and dangerous enough. There are times, though, Luke, in fights where I want him to bring more danger to the table. I want him to be more active. I want him to stalk rather than counter. I do have questions about what this matchup looks like, but should we count out the Killer Gorilla? No. I think he's a very underrated and smart fighter. He really turned himself into an effective boxer. I just want to see him bring that danger to the table and not be chasing the whole fight looking to land that big one.
I feel like the odds makers probably have this one right. I mean, I think what's kind of interesting is, dude, that your cat's butthole is distracting. It's very distracting.
Yeah, but you're not. We have a saying in this house: Zoe does as Zoe does. Whatever she wants, she does. Luke, you can't stop her. She's a machine. Sorry, keep going.
Do I need to show up and euthanize her?
Okay, that's just under the okay. I mean, R.I.P. Barbas, please. Okay, thank you.
In all seriousness, I actually, first of all, I really like this fight. I think it's an interesting coming or going fight. Rodrigues, 32 years of age, as I mentioned, Cannonier, 40. The question is, are the odds makers sleeping on Cannonier? And I just don't think that they are. it's not like Rodrigues is some kind of prohibitive favorite. And I'm not trying to make it just about the betting odds aspect. I'm kind of using that as a proxy for who is favored to win and like sort of what the bigger circumstances are that inform that judgment. And I again, the youth would be part of it. Also, Rodrigues kind of surging here and has a lot of different ways to make his offense felt. He can go for takedowns, and in fact, I think averages nearly 3 per 15 minutes. He puts on higher volume in terms of strikes landed per minute than Jared Cannonier. And you go back to watch the last fight that, I don't know if it was the last one, but the Kyle Bahalio fight that Cannonier had, it just seemed like he was a step behind. The youthful vigor, the ability to like land with differentiation of targets. I'm not saying Rodrigues and Bahalio are the same, and they don't even stand in the same stance. They're not, but they can meet a lot of the same criteria to get ahead in that way. And so it ends up, to me, I think, being a situation where, like, I love these, as I mentioned, coming or going, old versus new, who's really got a place in this, the future of the top of this division. I love those stakes. Now, it seems to me, BC, Cannonier is keenly aware of really what's happening here. He told our friends at Submission Radio that he kind of knows he's a gatekeeper. Let's roll the audio.
Without me even knowing, I've become a gatekeeper the more that I talk about it.
You're not a gatekeeper, man.
That's not my sentiment. I don't hold that. Yeah, I'm a gatekeeper. Here I am, Mr. Gatekeeper, ready to fight Saturday night. Hell no, that is not what I'm thinking whatsoever. The fact that I'm here doing these interviews and I have to articulate things, and I'm just saying that it kind of sounds that way, that I'm fighting these up and comers. This is the third one in a row that I'm fighting a guy looking to break into the top. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying I am a gatekeeper. But like I said,
I mean, I have a lot of respect for Jared's career, but that is what he is up against, is it not, BC?
It is. I mean, is there still time for a late run, put together a win streak? It's certainly possible, but this is the type of fight he has to win. So I don't mind him taking on that sense of urgency because it's absolutely true. But we'll see what happens in here. And, shout out to Dennis, by the way, of Submission Radio, one of the nicer people in the world of MMA at the moment. So shout out to that guy. But Luke, do you think he'll feel that urgency in there and activate it? And is this a matchup in your eyes that you believe he can stalk RoboCop in? Like, where are the advantages even in this version of Cannonier in your eyes?
Cannonier has big power. He's got pretty accurate boxing, and RoboCop can be hit. So that is nothing to take lightly. And I would imagine that is, I think RoboCop's stand-up has improved a lot, but the last fight that he lost was the last fight he didn't get a takedown in. So what I'm pointing out is not that it's takedown or bust where he has to win on the floor, but the mixing, right? The mixing is all kind of part of it. If he can't get the takedown, he has to box with Cannonier. I think he can still win. I still would probably favor him to win, but it's a bit of a different ball game at that point, right? You now have to contend with a much more focused offense that is still the remaining good parts of Cannonier's offense. But BC, the reality is this, these guys don't want to accept these labels, and the reality is you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, think of it this way. You're 40 years old as a UFC middleweight. You're clearly your best days are almost certainly behind you. They're framing it as it's my last chance or something like my last chance to get back to the top. Whereas the UFC sees it completely the opposite. You can't fight the gatekeeper role. You can only own it, right? And what I mean by that is consider somebody like Jim Miller. Jim Miller is a gatekeeper. Now he's a gatekeeper at a much lower level. These are our work. Who's going to get closer to the top 5 than obviously what Jim Miller is doing. Jim Miller fights a lot of unranked guys. But it's the similar kind of concept. Jim Miller knows his best days are behind him. So he just wants to keep competing no matter who he can get. He has accepted the UFC is going to use him as a measuring stick for a certain kind of guy that they're trying to see if they've got any potential or if they've got any weaknesses or, does this kid have the goods? Let's have him fight Jim Miller and then see what we get. Jim Miller has fully embraced this and has frankly thrived as a result. BC, is he winning all of his fights? He's not winning all of his fights, but he has thrived in that role because he has accepted it.
Yeah.
It's the denial of the gatekeeper role is where all of the problems, I think, begin to emerge. When you're in denial about the stage of the career you're in, to me, yes, maybe you have to be in denial to get the best out of yourself, But what ends up happening is you're taking fights that are probably too tough for you at the stage you're in, and it ends up just exacerbating it because you're in denial. I don't know if that makes sense.
That does. And I mean, when you look back, Luke, am I reframing history, or could have Cannonier beaten Adesanya with more urgency?
I think he could have. I mean, could you imagine? You can't really look at that fight and be like, Cannonier was, fully out of it. The problem was Izzy got, like, if they're running a race, Izzy got that far ahead and then just maintained that. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't just lap him. He didn't, really stomp his guts out. He just like, I'm going to get a little bit ahead. We're just going to ride that out the whole way. It was never like he was out of it. But at the same time, Cannonier couldn't get over the hill. And I remember after that fight, I was like, I don't know where Cannonier could possibly go from here. And to that point, I have to pull up I have to pull this up. To that point, since that night, BC, so that was UFC 276, right? Where Izzy came out as the Undertaker. He loses that one. He beat Sean Strickland split decision. That's a very controversial one. That was back in 2022. He did beat Marvin Vettori. Okay, so he rebounded, but then he loses to Imavov, young gun. Loses to Kyle Bahalio, young gun. And now he's taking on Rodrigues, who I wouldn't call like super young, but 32, probably in his prime. This is his chance to really make something happen. This is what I mean about being in denial about where you are. It ends up kind of misaligning your priorities and then succumbing to some of the more worst parts of it because you're trying to do too much with too little at too late.
Indeed. But if the equation of this fight is going to ask us whether Cannonier is still close enough to an elite talent that he can get this done, because this is very much a crossroads battle, is Robocop, in your eyes, good enough to get this type of win and then advance with it and truly make noise in contention in this division, Luke?
I don't know exactly how far Hobo or Robocop can go, BC. I mean, I'll tell you, some of his stats, I think, are good for this fight. So as I mentioned, he lands more significant strikes, almost a full integer more than Jared Cannonier. He's got higher striking accuracy. He does take slightly more damage, and his defense is not quite as good, but they're pretty comparable. But, takedowns per 15 minutes, 2.74. I was pretty close. It's pretty great. Also, his takedown defense, can you believe this? This is Robocop's takedown defense? 100%.
Wow.
100% takedown defense. That's pretty good. That's actually really good. Now, I don't imagine that Jared Cannonier is going to try and take him down, but this is my point. He's got more weapons, I think. And if you go back to the Kyle Bahalio fight, what was one of the big ones? The big one was the leg kick, chopping at him, reducing Cannonier's ability to move. And then came some of the punishment in round 3, those left straights that he was able to throw down the middle. It's like, can Robocop do that exactly? Well, I don't know if he can do that exactly, but he can probably do big parts of it, plus maybe some of the takedown threat. He just has a lot of different tools, plus youth on his side. Like I said, man, if you're not going to accept the gatekeeper role, you might get swallowed trying to be in denial about it. I have a feeling that's what's going to happen on Saturday. Let's quickly, if we can. Long Island Luke, where are you on the idea of Jared Cannonier overlooked underdog?
I'm not big on him, honestly. He's kind of disappointed me the last couple of fights. The Bahalio fight, I think he should have lost. The Imavov fight, I go back to. That's a bad loss for him. And Imavov's looked good since then, but I just feel like that performance was bad. Also, he's going to be 41 next month. It's just like, I don't know, dude. I think he's a little too far gone.
It's late.
Also, Robocop looks like he's at least my age, right?
In the face?
I 100% agree. He's the oldest looking 32-year-old I've ever seen. No offense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, his face looks like a catcher's mitt.
Okay, that was harsh and aggressive, but we'll take it. I have questions still, Luke, whether he, does he fit in nicely in that Vettori middle ground? I could see him toiling there, but can he get above that? Does he have the adaptable skill set beyond being a crusher when the advantage is his? We're gonna have to find that out. This is a very good match. Look, I really like this main event. Am I wrong? How many of these Apex main events do we hate the shit out of, Luke? And we'd be like, 5 years ago, that wouldn't even be on the main card. It's a good ass main event here in the Apex. Let's go. Let's go.
I like it. I like it a lot. I have no real problems with it. Is it the most dynamic fight? No, but it's a good one. It's a good test for Robocop. It's an interesting escalation for him. And BC, I mean, again, I'll say it one more time. This is, it seems do or die for Cannonier. It seems do or die for him. And whenever you have stakes like that, sometimes the inevitability of it all kind of shows up. Sometimes they rise to the occasion and show you that they got a few tricks left up their sleeve. With that in mind, BC, let's talk about the co-main event, which I think is awesome. I love this co-main event. Calvin Kattar taking on Youssef Zalal. BC, Youssef Zalal is such an interesting test case for guys really not being ready for the UFC when they first get there, and then having to kind of take something of a circuitous route in their overall career, but finding out, retooling, getting to the right spot, and then turning into something pretty special. 28 years old he is, coming in on, let's see, a 1, 2, 3. Well, actually, some of this is kickboxing and boxing. So a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight win streak just in MMA, but there's some other ones thrown in there along the way. BC, the guy shows up to the UFC out of LFA all the way back in 2020, wins 3 straight, but then loses 3 straight and then has a draw. Loses to Ilya Topuria. Okay, no harm, no foul. But loses to Sang-Woo Choi, Sean Woodson, and then has a draw with Damon Blackshear. He goes back to the he goes back to the regional scene, has a few fights down there, 4 fights down there, 5 fights, comes back and has been on an absolute tear, beating Billy Quarantillo via rear naked choke, beating Jarno Aarons via rear naked choke, beating Jack Shore via arm triangle.
Into retirement.
That's right. And now takes on Calvin Kattar. So my question to you, BC, is Calvin Kattar also appears to be in a bit of a do or die fight as he is 36 years old. Is there any reason to think that the Boston native can actually make this competitive when the last I checked, odds makers have Zalal as a near -500 favorite?
Okay, there is, from the standpoint of, we know what Calvin Kattar's all about. He is wired and driven and battle tested and tough, and he has to understand that this is a way deeper crossroads situation in the co-main than obviously even for Cannonier in the main, coming off of 2 defeats. Because for Kattar, it's been losses in 4 of his last 5, granted, of course, against elite competition. But this guy has to believe he's fighting for his job in this one, and he can be an action fighter and can go after it. So I'm expecting fireworks in here. You want to talk about ultimate crossroads fight? You got a battle-tested, highly ranked veteran losing 4 or 5 coming in against a guy, as you mentioned, 6 straight wins after that tough start in the UFC, all by stoppage, the last 4 in particular by submission. And do you know, Luke, that Liverpool's finest, Mike Owens Media, has also evolved into becoming a camp member of Calvin Kattar. He did DM me and said, we better be picking Kattar here on MK. Maybe he knows something, Luke. Maybe this is Kattar's chance to come out and remind us here. And like I said, maybe save his employment. Do I like his chances? Not on paper, but I know that character in there. I'm going to be looking closely at this one, Luke, to see if he can break through and stop us from writing his MMA obituary.
Zalal, according to our friends at DraftKings, BCA, as I mentioned, a -500 favorite. Youssef Zalal, as I mentioned, Calvin Kattar, +380. Zalal was asked at Media Day about Kattar being the underdog, and he had, I thought, an interesting thing to say. Here's what he said.
Because John, they said I was -500 or something like that. And I was like, okay. I was like, is that good, right? -500?
Means you're the favorite.
Yeah, what you guys think though? See, guys, that's what I'm talking about right there. I didn't know that, man. That's crazy. I feel like obviously it's a part of the sport, man. It's the hurt business, you know what I mean? I have nothing but respect for Calvin, man. That's like bro. When I got this fight, I was with David Hunama in New York when he fought in New York, and he had the opponent change. We got there on Tuesday. So as soon as we landed, they're like, hey, we found your new opponent.
Oh, well, cut off. Okay, doesn't matter. The
Could
point.
You find a lower quality video of that next time, maybe?
Well, I mean, the UFC puts them out, but then they'll just tear down our videos if we use them. So, what?
Well,
what
not for press conference, not for the pre and post stuff. Just
really?
Just
okay,
in the broadcast. I found through the many times I've effed us on. Have you seen this shit? I believe it's just no interviews on the telecast and no fight.
Okay. All right. Well, good to know for next time. But the point being is you can see this guy, BC, being the favorite is still, what would you say? Seems kind of new. He still has this kind of plucky upstart vibe, but the odds makers see him as a gigantic favorite in this particular case. Long Island Luke, are we sleeping on Kattar?
Yes, you are sleeping on
Okay,
Kattar.
tell me why.
Okay.
His last, hold on, I got it all written here. His last 3 losses all came to top 10 featherweights.
True.
Zalal, you mentioned, has only fought Ilya. Granted, that's like the best featherweight, but it was 5 years ago. He hasn't really been tested against the current top 15. Calvin Kattar's last 2 wins also came against top 15 guys, and he's probably fighting for his contract. Odds just way too far apart. Got to take a dab on Calvin Kattar.
And
I don't think that's
Luke's like, got to take a dab.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I did mix that in there. You like that? Yeah.
I don't think that's crazy, but I mean, let's go through it here for just a second. He fights Max Holloway in January of 2021, one of the most brutal beatdowns you'll ever see. Fights Giga Chikadze and rebounds. That's impressive. But then has the Josh Emmett fight, which was also brutal as hell.
Yes.
That was back in 2022. And then he fought Arnold Allen, but got injured. So whatever. You can't, I don't know what you say about that. Took all of 2023 off, BC, and then fought Aljamain Sterling and basically gave up 8 out of 13 takedown attempts.
Yes.
Gave away 8 takedown attempts. Zalal obviously getting a bunch of these takedowns, or ability to find the back in this resurgence. BC, it is clear that Zalal has never, I mean, he's fought, to Long Island Luke's point, he has fought guys who are really good, Ilya Topuria, blah, 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 but he's never beaten anybody this good, right? Calvin Kattar presents a much different kind of challenge in terms of like what it would mean to stack a W like this on his resume. If Sterling can get 8 takedowns, how many can Zalal get?
It's an interesting question. I mean, this is also the most dangerous opponent Zalal's ever possibly fought. So, I mean, it really comes down, is Kattar willing to fight desperate? Is he willing to fight dangerous? And I don't think he has to fight reckless, but he's got to be willing to capitalize on the opportunities, because what he's got to be looking for is a big mistake, a big opening that he can capitalize on. But what if that doesn't come? What can he do? Can he keep his back off the ground? Let's go with he yields 4 takedowns, Luke. But if he can keep this standing for long, can the veteran skills, can the toughness play through? Or do we have to come to terms that Kattar's taking a lot of damage in some of these big fights? The Holloway one, an all-time one. I don't know. I mean, like, have you seen him lifeless in this losing streak, or just outgunned by true elites? That might decide the answer to the question of, can he get ahead in this fight?
I mean, this is the problem, right? So you can count me in as absolutely the ending of his career, whenever that happens, has been hastened by the amount of damage he has been taking.
Yes.
Now, whether that is Saturday or not, I don't know, but whatever it was going to be, it got shortened significantly after the Max Holloway fight. And then I think on top of that, the Josh Emmett fight. And so, as I mentioned, he fights Arnold Allen, but he gets injured 8 seconds into the second round. So what can you really determine from that? And then he takes a huge break and comes back and basically gets out wrestled by Aljamain Sterling, but Sterling couldn't finish him off. I don't know. I feel like on the one hand, this is where I'm torn, BC. On the one hand, I feel like Zalal in a 3-round contest should be able to do enough to, at a bare minimum, eke out a win. On the other hand, if someone as good as Sterling, yes, could get takedowns and keep top position, but couldn't put him away, and we know how good Sterling is as a grappler, not just in terms of his wrestling, but his ability to find the back, dominate position, you name it. If he also couldn't put away Calvin Kattar, then maybe Long Island Luke is right, that Calvin Kattar is actually not quite done yet. Some of these results are real, but don't mean what they traditionally seem to mean. And he's actually going to show Zalal here what time it is. I can't really decide between the two, but that's sort of the beauty of the matchmaking, right? This is another coming or going fight. Is it the surging young guy who is untested, in large part anyway, against someone of this level, versus this person who's been at this level? Can they retain as age, injury, damage, and you name it, begins to accumulate and then take them from their more lofty perch?
I agree. That's a great way to frame it here. I mean, the real question you have to ask yourself is, Kattar's next fight going to take place in the smart cage and GFL against Sage Northcutt on the same card as Shogun versus Yoel Romero? Good Lord. Or can he save his job, continue to be a tough out in this division? Luke, I think you're going to get a good performance from him. I think he's going to flash elements of danger, but him losing a decision seems fairly concrete for me here.
Can we also say that Kattar is a bit of a slow starter? Like even in the Zabit fight, remember he was kind of putting it on Zabit late, but then it wasn't enough time, and he ended up, I think, losing as a consequence, if I recall correctly. So
that happened, yes.
Yeah, and there's been other bouts where like he kind of got heated up a little bit later, and I'm like, dude, if it's a 3-round contest and Zalal is all over you early, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. This is huge stakes.
People still think that round 3 is a major indictment against Zabit being as great as, you and I, all of us truly in our heart believe him to be, Luke. And I don't see that. I just don't see that. Guy's a magician.
Me. All right. BC, elsewhere on this card, Edmund Shabazian taking on Dylan Budka. That's Edmund Shabazian. I don't really know what we're going to get with him, but it usually isn't boring, typically.
Well,
anyway.
he split wins and losses his last 4, but he got knocked out in both defeats, and that stretch of splitting 4 fights came after 3 consecutive losses. So, Luke, 27 years old, but through the defeats, we haven't seen him find that level of consistency nor that level of stability, really. Like when things go bad, they go from bad to really bad quickly for him. He's still that Amir Khan best first round offensive fighter that you can find. But I feel like he's kind of permanently broken, Luke. And this might be a get well type fight. We'll see. Or maybe this is a tough challenge for him. But I vote no confidence for Chancellor Valorum in this case, if you know what I'm saying.
I don't.
Oh, it's a callback to the prequels, some George Lucas.
Oh,
bullshit.
yes. Oh, right.
When Palpatine's tricked the senators. I mean, look, one of them was Jar Jar. Like, you can't find a better representative from Gungan underworld, right? You know what I'm saying?
I am sad that there wasn't more mass murder of the Gungans in Star Wars. That really is one of the plot points.
They did save the good guys though in episode 1. Okay, spoiler alert.
Listen, the Jedis were losers and failures, and they also deserve.
I don't accept that. They went through hard times after Order 66, and maybe Yoda was a little bit of a bitch, and he didn't realize.
Dude, they didn't see any of their problems coming, despite all of their magical powers. They got wiped out, and they're fucking losers. The Jedis are fucking losers. That's just what they are.
Wow.
BC, Ismail Bonfim taking on Nazim Sadikov, a fun little scrap. Rodolfo Vieira, as you indicated, taking on Andre Petroski. I love that fight.
I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. It's a trend. Can I just get your take on the Bonfim buzz? Because both brothers came in with huge finishes, theatrical victories, and then met opposition and sort of had setbacks. But are we still in the Bonfim Bonanza business here, that these guys can shake up their respective divisions and be elite dangers?
I don't know. So you have Ismail, who lost to Benoit Saint Denis, which is no crime, but if you're supposed to be the next big thing, that's not really one of the things you're supposed to do. And then Gabriel, obviously losing to, who was it? Nicholas Dalby, which was a fun contest, but he
got brutalized at the end, though.
He got brutalized at the end. So it's like they came in with a fair amount of hype, and then they're obviously good, but they're, it's not Patricio Pitbull, who was ice cold on his way up. It's not. That's not the way that this goes. But as I indicated, Angela Hill, BC, at 115, obviously taking on Ketlin Souza. That seems like a decent contest. Angela Hill, man, just kind of one of these survivors, still out there doing it, thugging it out, and getting wins sometimes and losses other times, but still out there being competitive.
Would it be a compliment to call her female Jim Miller?
I don't think that's crazy. I think that's crazy. Okay. Gabriel Bonfim taking on Chaos Williams. That's going to be a hell of a contest as long as it lasts.
Chaos
anyway.
has won, I believe, 5 of his last 6, and that only loss was a split decision. He's no, we don't talk about him anymore.
We don't, but we probably should. Walter Walker taking on Dontel Mays at 265. Holy shit, heavyweight is terrible.
Yep.
And then there's a couple other decent ones up and down. So, some things to enjoy, I think, up and down this card if you're a hardcore fan.
Can we talk to a hardcore fan? Like, does Long Island Luke have a undercard banger bonus bet that the people should main card minute themselves and get fired up?
On the undercard, not so much, BC. I wish I had something for you here. Chaos by knockout, I like over Bonfim. I'll take that. That's probably plus money.
I don't think that's crazy at all.
Jared Gordon is fighting Nursultan Ruzaboyev's little brother. I don't know anything about Ruzaboyev's little brother, but Jared Gordon's like a minus 400. I feel like that is a little too high of a price on Jared. I might throw a dabble on the younger Ruzaboyev there. But
I mean, if his name ends in a Z or a V and he's an underdog, one of the odds makers fucked up. I
probably
know
a
that.
hammer. Yep.
Yes.
I know that. BC, are you a basketball fan by chance?
You know, I'm a baller, Luke. You know, I'm born and
Right.
raised a baller. All right.
Well, if you're a basketball fan like me and BC, I got a question for you, which is, are you guys ready to win money? Check out Pick 6 from DraftKings. When it comes to basketball payouts, DraftKings Pick 6 dunks on its rivals, including Prize Picks. Just select 2 or more players, BC, and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat, like points, rebounds, three-pointers, and more. Pick 6 is available in most states, BC, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. Isn't that right?
That's true. And here's the thing. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6 and cash in your basketball knowledge today. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now. Use our code Kombat with a K. You know that code, KOMBAT. And here's the deal. New customers, you put $5 down on any bet, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. We're talking about better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. And you know what DraftKings brings you? The crown, right? The crown is yours. You got a gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be an 18 or older. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawals. Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. It's a limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right. Topic number 3, if we can. BC, Front Office Sports reported this week that ESPN is going to be moving on without Top Rank, including to allow them, if they wanted to exit their agreement if they found a new partner. So there's a million questions for this. BC, why does ESPN want to move on from Top Rank? That's the first question I would ask. What does it mean for those two entities, ESPN and Top Rank? And then what does it mean for U.S. boxing?
Yeah, all of that is connected. And,
real quickly, long on, Luke, put the screenshot up. This is what you have here, BC. They've been together for 8 years. This is a deal they signed in 2017. And then also part of the report, as you can see there in the subheading, Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery apparently were not interested in Top Rank's business during at least preliminary talks. I'm sorry, BC, go ahead.
Yeah, and we're certainly not interested in the full package. Look, it will be interesting where they fall. And it's just a continuation. I wrote a column for it on CBS Sports this week of all of these changes that we knew were coming this year. They're happening so rapidly fast that you got to stay with it to try to figure out who's going to be aligned with who and where's it going. Who's Top Rank? They're the oldest running promotion with that classic reputation of building great prospects and turning them into pay-per-view stars. So them being pulled off of ESPN after 8 years is certainly big news. How it dictates the future is like this. We had heard rumors that Top Rank could be interested, and Bob Arum tweeted himself in talking with DAZN. DAZN already has 3 of the 5 power promoters, with the only one being somewhat on the outside, PBC, with their deal with Amazon Prime. If Top Rank goes to DAZN, then we're truly talking about more of a collective monopoly here, not just the future one that seems to be in the works from TKO and the overarching Turkey-fueled Saudi Arabian takeover, which is consolidating a lot, which was boxing's problem. Everything was piecemeal. But should Top Rank go in that direction on an app like DAZN, which does great globally, but we've talked about it before, is a niche app aimed at hardcore boxing fans in the States. So getting off of ESPN, if there's no boxing on ESPN, in theory, would be a bad thing for American boxing. Maybe on the same level of Canelo Alvarez signing a 4-fight deal with 3 of those being in Saudi Arabia when he's the biggest box office star that we have at the moment. But he will be in Vegas in this fall for that huge Terrence Crawford showdown. Where this goes is interesting. You also have Lance Pugmire of Boxing Scene reporting that Top Rank is actually looking to diversify their package moving forward. And they're currently in talks with ESPN about at least part of the deal, along with Warner, which has access to TNT, TBS, and the Max app. So I think Top Rank will be fine in the end, but where they go could continue to dictate the future as we seem to be getting closer to whatever this new takeover is, them putting up maybe fences. Like I always say, eventually it's going to be you're either with them or you're against them. A lot of this is speeding up really quickly in that regard. But if Top Rank, if boxing in general can stay on ESPN in some form, that's going to be a huge plus for the American boxing scene. If it's only offered overseas and on apps that are niche, it's going to be really hard for casuals to stumble into fights or stumble into talking about fights where the coverage starts to go away. Let's not act like we don't still need super fights each year in this sport, bringing in those casuals to keep everything financially afloat, or at least the old model we did, right? The new model is Turkey will pay for it all. But this is all happening very, very quickly, as I mentioned. And there are some rumors out there that ESPN is not getting rid of Top Rank, but just maybe restructuring part of the deal. And then that could be a future home for whatever Dana White and TKO boxing is doing. Just like, Luke, you do hear some distant whispers that maybe even TKO could be involved in Canelo Crawford. So there's a lot going on that is going to dictate all this. But what we do know about Top Rank, the deal ends at the end of July. You mentioned they could get out as early as April if they are ready to activate with their new suitors. We'll see where they go. I don't know what all of this means either for PBC, which has some fighters crossing over there, but not Tank, not the biggest ones outside of Canelo yet. So we'll see, Luke. There's a lot that's going on right now, but I think the biggest thing selfishly for us, both business-wise and fan-wise, is we don't want to see the sport go completely over there. And it's not a fair statement to make because Turkey's bringing a Ring Magazine series to the States, and they just announced yesterday that Garcia-Haney doubleheader in May will be in Times Square for free for as many people who show up. So, like, there are good things happening in the States. But if the States aren't the center of the boxing world anymore, what is that going to do to like our job security and the whole idea of does boxing matter in this country? I really hope that is preserved through whatever changes promotionally, network wise, we continue to see happen.
I saw a criticism that one of the things that Top Rank did was it didn't necessarily not try. That wouldn't be a fair way to describe it. But what some suggested would be fair was that they weren't really ever trying to hit home runs. They were just content with, singles and doubles in terms of matchmaking and what kind of fights that they made. Is that a fair criticism?
To some degree, yes, because let's not forget, they started off with a smaller deal. Then Top Rank had Manny Pacquiao and Jeff Horn in that all-action title fight in Australia that did insane viewership live on ESPN. And that was the turning point of them getting an even better deal, right? That has gone now 8 full years. To some degree, did they develop huge pay-per-view stars that sustained? The answer might be no on that. I mean, you do have to look at the fact that Terrence Crawford came and went before his really big crossover moment. They've lost Shakur Stevenson. They certainly have a set of prospects, and a lot of them are fighting tonight on their great Valentine's Day card in New York City, like Keyshawn Davis, like Abdullah Mason. Like, they're ready to reload, but do they have the top end? Teofimo's been a little flaky and inconsistent. Loma is not sure if he's going to fight again. So it's not like the cupboard's bare, but is that criticism acceptable? Did they lean into the deal and get comfortable? You could certainly ask that. There were certainly big fights. Don't forget, during the pandemic, we got Teofimo versus Loma on regular ESPN. Those are the big moments, the highlights. But you also got now some of the biggest top-ranked fighters, Beterbiev, Fury. They're not always fighting on ESPN because of the Saudi Arabia influence and how things are going. So a lot of factors that play into that. Is Top Rank going to be pay-per-view only going forward on ESPN, or are they going to be completely gone? We don't know. But Luke, it's to act like this stuff doesn't matter. This stuff will dictate the future in so many ways.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Also, one thing I have to kind of ask is a bit of a broader question, BC, which is, how did we get from a place in 2023 where boxing had one of its best years in years, and now we're at a place where it's like we're not even sure if there's going to be boxing on American linear television? What happened?
The American linear television part is a concern, but what happened was the streaming thing took off, just as the old way of boxing in America with pay premium cable channels with huge budgets funding the sport, taking the sport off of network television. And that model worked for a while. It was dependent upon pay-per-view, but it worked. Well, look, HBO and Showtime are no longer in this, and cable TV isn't what it once was, and streaming is blowing up. I mean, it just so happened that DAZN played their cards into this relationship with Turkey, into being the power network in a lot of ways at the moment, considering the amount of major promoters that they have and Turkey funding them and fueling them. I mean, Saudi Arabia just put $1 billion into DAZN. So it happened because of that, sure. But let's not forget, 2023 was a great year, no doubt, maybe one of the best years in decades. But it was fueled by a need in a lot of ways for it to be. Like 2023 was the year of PBC and Showtime, but they had huge motivation to try to keep what they had. You know, ultimately there were decisions made from Paramount, the parent company, that you know, almost didn't affect them, but still led to their removal. So to go from that to this, well, look at the changes that we've seen since 2023. It's crazy. And Turkey Al-Sheikh has been a big part of it. I don't know if this is going to kill the U.S. boxing scene if there is no direct boxing outlet outside of pay apps. I don't know, Luke. Turkey wanting to bring big fights still to America, I think is very smart, and I think backs this up. But to our larger point, if those fights are on DAZN, if they're not being talked about on ESPN as much, if they're not being grassroots marketing, will this sport fall deeper into that niche, even though they're still making super fight after super fight? It's worth talking about. It's worth it for sure in that regard. There's things that are going to happen in the next year that are going to be great for the sport. I mean, how could you say that it wouldn't when we already know we're getting Canelo Crawford and Turkey wants to do Haney Garcia too, and the winner fights the winner of Teo and Boots? I mean, it's like fantasy right now. It's crazy. But the bigger question is, what's the cost of that? Not just sports washing, particularly the TKO takeover. Will things get handled in a heavy-handed, monopolistic way like in MMA and pro wrestling? And is that great for the fan? Is that great for the sport long term? Will the fighters get paid? All the purses they're getting paid now by Saudi. Is that a temporary thing? Like, there's a lot of questions we still don't have the answers to, but how we got here, Luke, was a confluence of huge events happening at the same time.
You know what my thing is, BC? Like, talking about like this Haney and Garcia card that's going to be in Times Square for free. It's like, of course, who would have an issue with a promoter being like, you can just come for free? And maybe boxing needs that kind of publicity. Like, the value there is the long-term way in which that works as an advertisement to get people excited about boxing. But one thing that it doesn't do is it doesn't help us actually find a new business model, right? Like, if the issue is the business model, someone needs to come up with a different way that can be sustainably done in the absence of Saudi investment, in the absence of Saudi largesse, right? And so my question would be like, who is doing that? Who is building stars in a sustainable way, absent, waiting for the siphon to just stay turned on from Saudi Arabia? Like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's like, oh, this is great for boxing. They're making big cards. And even when they come back to the States, they're giving away stuff for free. Again, as an advertising thing to get people excited, I do think that is great. But it just kicks the can down the road about solving the problems that the current boxing model has. And I don't see anybody really addressing that. Am I being too unfair?
I guess the answer to that question is somewhat dependent upon what you believe the current model actually is. Because even though we've been talking a lot lately, for example, about TKO coming in, and the New York Times report, even though Dana kind of refuted a lot of those points, was that it would be a prospect league starting in the fall, and it might be a Ultimate Fighter type reboot. And it's this whole idea of trying a stab at rebuilding the foundation of boxing and doing things differently in a more controlling UFC type way, to be fair. But Luke, should we smarten up that maybe the real long-term future is TKO in general, trying with Saudi's money to create a real league, a UFC of boxing, a true, you're with us or you're against us, this is the true monopoly? And would that, how long would it take that to take form if that's the plan? And does that suddenly bring it infused back into US boxing and turn everything around because of Dana White and UFC's and TKO's entrance into it? And TKO isn't just those. It's Ari Emanuel, it's Nick Khan, it's Triple H with WWE. I mean, there's a lot of really, really elite, smart people in that think tank circle that they're doing right now. So I don't know, like, if their goal is to literally start a new league and bring everybody into it and put the fences around and rebuild it from the ground up that way, then those plans are going to be the answer to your questions about how we're going to take away certain things in boxing now and create it anew. It's just how quickly can that take hold? Will everyone else who right now is just like, yeah, this is cool, we're getting turkey money, whatever you want, do they at some point go, I'd like to have control back of my promotion? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that's going to look like. I also don't know if TKO takes over, if it's not everything boxing fans would have been crying about and asking for decades. It might be. They got a track record. It's happening really fast though, Luke. And it's really hard to try to understand how quickly this can get done because it's so unprecedented. And also, we don't really know exactly what their plan is.
All well said. All well said. I guess we shall see. Sticking with boxing, BC, let's go to topic number 4 now. So what happened is there's a fight tonight between Keyshawn Davis and Dennis Berinchik. And earlier this week, BC, boxers are now sending each other racist gift bags. I mean, it's the most insane thing imaginable. But a box was sent to the hotel room of Keyshawn Davis that had watermelon and bananas in it. Very, very clever, as you can well imagine. Now, of course, the Ukrainian denies it. Keyshawn Davis initially accused him, although he has since realized, or I think suggested that's not true. And Teofimo Lopez appears to be the guy who has done it, although that has not necessarily been confirmed. I sent a bunch of assets to you, Long Island Luke. Let's skip the first couple of them, but I do want to play this one. The Teofimo Lopez, he is watching a video of Keyshawn Davis angrily reacting to being sent this box. And I want to show that. I want to show the Top Rank statement, NBC, then we'll talk about it. Let's first take a look at the Teofimo Lopez video.
I'm going to address the fact that this guy came to America to give me bananas and watermelon with a note on it. It's unprofessional, and I feel like it's racist, and you just made this fight a little more personal. Take it a step further, Keyshawn, just so...
Top Rank had this to say. Top Rank is appalled and disgusted by the actions of the individuals that delivered the package to Keyshawn Davis last night. These actions are contrary to the foundation of Top Rank. There is no place for this in sports or society. Keyshawn has our full support. BC, a very sort of simple question here, which is, how bad is the racism problem in combat sports?
Worse than I ever thought it could be in 2025. And having this type of conversation is always going to be a very polarizing one indeed, because of the so often
some people love racism. That's the problem in combat sports, BC. There's a lot of people who just like it. They just love it.
Well, here's my deal. Everyone now links racism with politics. So it's like what side you're on. Either everything's racist or nothing can be racist. It's like it's you want to see how gross it is right now. Like I said, post something about your unhappiness with racism on social media and see the response. But to me, obviously, it has nothing to do with politics and has everything to do with decency and love and, you know, treating your fellow man as a person and all of that. So can we get it out? And I don't need a million tweets saying BC. It's been built upon it. It has been in a lot of ways. The marketing of fights for years has been built upon white versus black, Italian versus Irish. I mean, obviously, right? Like yes. Puerto Rico versus Mexico. But having national love and having rivalries within that is different than abject racism. It's different than the shit we have coming out of UFC on the regular that is not only unpoliced, it's almost like revered because it represents freedom and free speech. And then on the flip side, it's not that we don't have crazy homophobia in boxing. The only major difference is until this takeover in boxing is complete, like boxing's a wild west and there's no central body. UFC is a little different. They could control that. But to see this added on to a 2-week period with the Bryce Mitchell stuff, some of the Sean Strickland comments, and some of those boxers lately liberally using the N-word and Conor McGregor tweeting the N-word, like what the F are we doing here? Yes, it's been used before. Yes, a fight like Larry Holmes versus Jerry Cooney was almost exclusively promoted through the eyes of white versus black and a race war to a disgusting level. This isn't that. And I don't know if Teofimo did that. Keyshawn would then put out a video, like you said, saying he doesn't think it's Berinchik, but hey, Teofimo, I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to let you use this situation to try to get yourself paid, all that, which is certainly his right. I don't know if it was Teofimo or it's just Teofimo trying to put his finger in the wound and insert himself in the situation and continually use basically race baiting to try to lure big time opponents into fights. This is getting pretty gross, guys. This is getting pretty ridiculous. It's different than Sandy Ryan getting paint thrown on her on the sidewalk outside of a hotel on her way to the fight with Michaela Mayer, which was unnecessary, of course, but like saucy and kind of interesting. Obviously, what happened in the last 2 days has spiced up this fight, but this fight was already going to be great to watch from begin with. To see Keyshawn Davis in just his 13th pro fight look to back up his words and take a big step up and go for his first world title. And we know if he wins that, like, you're going to be in talks, conversations of potentially fighting the other champions in your division like Shakur and Tank. That's enough of a story on its own. Adding this is just gross, whether Teofimo did it or not. I'm just getting sick to the point of not just the tolerance people have for racism in this combat sports landscape, but the whole idea like it improves it, or that's what you get, or that's what the world's really like. We can have standards in boxing too. I think we can. This is pretty ridiculous here. And I don't think Davis planted himself to bring attention to the fight. I think it's all just gross and disgusting, and I like to move on from it. But it's certainly going to add something to the fight. The question is it going to make Keyshawn even nastier in his attempt to take down Berinchik, where he's already actually a big favorite? Or is it going to be a hurdle for him to overcome emotion-wise? I don't know, Luke. But, like, what can you really say about somebody putting that box and knocking on his door and turning this into a story? It's gross. Freaking gross.
What's amazing is, like, I would love to ask Teofimo exactly what he's laughing at. And I know what the answer would be. Oh, I'm trolling this guy into getting him angry. But it's like, if you're sending someone a racist gift box, like, what is the joke? Right? What is the underlining it all? What is the joke? The joke is, according to the person sending it, that black people eat watermelon and bananas. That's the joke. Like, that's your joke. That's your punchline. It's not a punchline. Like, there is no joke. There's not a joke there. You're just sending somebody basically like abusive things to get them angry, and you're doing it along racial strife. There's actually not a punchline involved. So that's the first thing I want to be very clear about. But the thing that I think really underlines all of this, and it's just amazing that no one ever really connects the dots because people just buy into like the bullshit propaganda about it all. If you complain about this, people will say things like, you know, hey, you're soft. I've seen it all over online, including in boxing Twitter. And I'm like, dude, it couldn't be a bigger opposite if you fucking tried. Ladies and gentlemen, the combat sports industry is the least capable industry of credibly making an argument that they are resistant to speech that is irritating or difficult or contrary to their own interests. It's the most sensitive industry anywhere. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about all the other things. If you criticize people in power, they are extremely thin-skinned, and that goes from promoters to managers to athletes to really everything in between. The entire both MMA and boxing industries, to different degrees, but they both do it, operate on an honor culture of pearl clutching. What did you say about me? And then when you say, well, this is really rancid that we're introducing this stuff, then they have the balls to say what the problem is you're too soft. And I'm like, no. The entire industry is the most thin-skinned one in my 45 years I have ever worked in. That's not the truth. Because if you were really cared about being soft around speech and being like accepting of the things that you don't like that people say, we'd have a very different industry that would not function this way. What's really happening is you guys just like racist shit. Like, just say that. Just say that. You just think that is awesome and you want to be able to say it. And the reality is it's just all sleight of hand too. We can't say simple truths. We can't actually hold power to account in any of these industries without getting severe pushback and, threat. Dude, how many times I've been threatened both physically and otherwise in this industry? Phone calls I've had threatening me for things I've done, messages and DMs I've been written for things I've at various times reported on. Like, that's the kind of thing that actually happens with speech in this industry. Letting you say rancid things and then sending racist gift boxes to black athletes, that's just people enjoying racism. There's no connection to anything else. It's just that by itself. And unless you can reconcile with that, there's nothing really to be said beyond it. They're letting you get away with indulging in outrageous things while never really letting you say the things that actually matter, the things that are really need to actually be protected, and the things that would actually change the industry if they had a different posture. It's the most thin-skinned industry I've ever seen. Any claim that anyone makes that this is an industry that really is tough and you can't let people get to us and things like that don't matter is bullshit. It's complete and total fiction, top to freaking bottom. So until there's a recognition about what the actual truth is related to what things can say and who's soft and whatnot, you can miss me. You can absolutely miss me with this completely fraudulent projection of strength. I'm not soft. I allow rancid things in my orbit. You let them in your orbit because you like them. That's the issue. You just like them. So be honest about it, and then we can all move on. But having to tap dance like, I'm so tough. I like a world where we can send racist gift boxes to black athletes. Yeah, because you like that on its own terms. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love necessarily like that Keyshawn just ran and accused Berinchyk, without having proof necessarily, but it's a bad situation. I mean, look, the fight itself, as I said, sells itself. So does the card. You got Xander Zayas in the co-main. You got Jared Big Baby Anderson coming back. Abdullah Mason. Keon Davis, the brother of Keyshawn. Muhammad Ali's grandson, I think, is opening the card. So it's a pretty damn good card. New York City, theater at Madison Square Garden. And oh, by the way, Keyshawn Davis may have a major step up and step through type of moment. I mean, Luke, do you have any opinion on him as a young fighter? Because he looks like he's ready to take over. And I wasn't saying that just a few fights ago, but I finally caught up too.
I mean, his last fight in Norfolk the Norfolk area was incredible. Let's show the face. Excuse me. Here's the face-off, BC, between these guys. Now, again, this was before Keyshawn kind of relented to the idea that Berinchyk might not be responsible for that, the gift box or whatever. But you can see here, he touches the belt, like I'm all in his face, and he's going to get shoved here, which is kind of fun. Just give it a minute.
Yeah, to the back.
Smiling in his face. And here he gets pushed. Watch. There it is. Could have gotten ugly, by the way. There's Bomac. Dude, Bomac, I mean, can we get him some Ozempic? I mean, he is.
Okay. We don't talk like that. Let's leave that man alone. But yeah,
you get the idea. Fun fight. Again, top rank, right? BC, top rank. Fight.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be all over this fight. I really want to see if Keyshawn is of this ilk. Odds makers have him comfortably ahead, a 6-1 favorite, Luke, at least before all this stuff broke out. But again, this is a challenge for the young fighter to keep the emotions together, but also find a way to fuel the obvious emotions that broke through with this incident and with Teofimo clowning him and all of that. But wow. I mean, I hope this is the limits for Teofimo and Ryan Garcia, Luke. I hope they don't have more tricks in this bag, but
well, Ryan Garcia is mentally ill, so I don't really think you can expect much from him. And Lopez just seems confused at best. So I guess I would expect more.
Like he's trying to be a disruptor. He's trying to be edgy. He's not afraid to piss off Top Rank. Like it's interesting the way he's playing his cards. I'm not against everything he does here, but this stuff's just, come on.
It's rancid. It's just completely rotten, cancerous nonsense. All right. With that in mind, let's go to the final topic, which is the opposite of that. Now, I don't know how likely any of this is, but it might be kind of fun if they decide to do it. Oleksandr Usyk recently said that he's got 2 fights left in his career. He looks like he's going to fight the upcoming winner of the Dubois. Who is he fighting, Dubois, BC?
Joseph Parker.
Parker, that's right. Which is, I think, the co-main to next weekend's big boxing card between the rematch between Beterbiev and Bivol. Okay, so he wants to fight the winner of that one. And then he's got one more in mind. Before I get to the question, BC, let's roll the tape about who he wants to fight.
Alex Pereira. Maybe. Why not?
Now, I just heard you say that you think you've only got 2 fights left in your career, so I guess that rules out a return to cruiserweight. In an ideal world, who are those 2 fights for Oleksandr Usyk?
First, it's who win next fight in 22 February. But next maybe show fight with Alex Pereira. Maybe. Why not? Alex wanna.
Okay. Is that
We found
Reg?
the Reg. We found the Reg. Yeah.
Hey, Reg looks like he's doing all right.
He's arrived. He's fighting. He's fighting the good fight. He's
Pobrecito.
he puts a
BC,
smile on. Yeah. Keep going.
simple question to you. Not will or whatever. Should this fight be made? Should it be made?
Normally I would say no, and I'm disgusted by it, and it's ridiculous. I mean, it's obviously no different per se than like when Francis Ngannou fought Tyson Fury, and that turned into something, right? But still, knowing the historical run Usyk was on, you want to see him see whatever big fights are remaining in regular boxing, right? Obviously, if Dubois beats Parker, that's a great rematch considering the circumstances of the first fight, and it would give Usyk another chance to be undisputed. And I like that the announcer did ask about cruiserweight, which there were times where there were talks about that. Could he go fight Jai Opetaia there in some type of super fight? But I have to say, Luke, the chance of TKO making quick moves into like I said, beyond just the idea of a prospects league, if they're going to fast track this, and if them and Turkey are truly in lockstep, like it appears, I wonder if this wouldn't be the type of crossover thing that would make a ton of sense, because Alex Pereira is really aiming towards some rarefied air from the standpoint, not just of the star that he's becoming, the global star, beloved, doesn't have to speak the language. People just love this guy. Everyone's calling him out. But, he could be your first 3 division champion as well. He could be the type of guy that is going to be so huge. It could be in John Jones fights, even though you would think in theory, well, you're going to serve him up to the best heavyweight. What are you going to get? He might be the perfect type of guy who not only can go in there and, make it look fun and see how much he can compete, but that this could take him to true global stardom. Like, if you're going to do it, is he the right star with the right fighting style and, in some degree, the right puncher's chance to kind of make something like this that would be largely unnecessary for sure, but could they make it a real crazy, huge event? I think they could. I mean, if you put it in Saudi Arabia, it's certainly not going to fill that and fit that exactly, but I like some of the things that Turkey's doing, by the way. I like Times Square as a venue. I like the idea that Canelo versus Bud could be in Allegiant Stadium. I've been calling for that for years for any combat sports promoter. I'm not against creative ideas like him bringing Teofimo to Alcatraz Island in San Francisco. Like, I like this kind of stuff. So if you're telling me that this fight has a chance to be a true blockbuster, a true crossover, and they can make it feel like that and do something special with it, then Poatan might be that dude to make this fun. Only when it matters. Mayweather McGregor was a perfect storm. You had to do it. Some of these other ones, we wish they never happened or they overachieved or whatever. But Luke, tell me if you agree with me. I'm actually kind of in on this, given what it could mean and the TKO presence of, if they want to make this a big thing, they can make this a massive thing.
I don't hate this idea. I just think you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. I mean, listen, I don't think any of us expect for Poatan to win. That seems like a foregone conclusion. I mean, maybe some people do, but I don't think that's very realistic. But it's kind of beside the point. The question is, like, what can you get out of it? Obviously, Poatan can get a big payday, but beyond that, like, what do we get out of it? What does TKO potentially get out of it? And the answer is, I think you have to kind of wait and see what happens with Poatan. Now, again, maybe they'll just completely dismiss this, and I don't know if it will happen or whatever. But the question was, should it happen? Well, maybe it should. Now, BC, if Ankalaev ends up beating Poatan, this is kind of a moot point. I mean, you could still do it, but he doesn't have to be champion. But it kind of works better if you're champion, because you still have that aura as this guy who is really like the guy in the UFC. You get his belt taken, it's somewhat diminished. It doesn't change the fact that he can be a stand-up fighter, but what the prestige is somewhat diminished if that happens. But if he beats him, well, now you got a question you have to ask yourself, which is, what are you going to do with Poatan? And I think it goes back to the heavyweight division, BC, which is, if they can't find a way to make a Tom Aspinall versus John Jones fight, who the hell is Tom Aspinall going to fight? You might have to do a Tom Aspinall Poatan fight in that way, because like they're really, I mean, you could do Cyril Gane, but like, BC, what's a bigger fight? Poatan versus Tom Aspinall or Gane versus Aspinall? And the answer is clearly Poatan, right?
Clearly.
So I'm not even sure, even though he won, that Gane even deserves a fight opposite Tom Aspinall. Just he would be available and new. So that would just be the reasoning there. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you do get the John Jones fight, and it does happen, Poatan beats Ankalaev. John has occupied time with Aspinall. You've got a little bit of house money to play with there. The only question you would have to ask yourself is, will a fight like that launch some stardom for Poatan in the same way that McGregor became a bigger household name through the Mayweather fight? I think the answer is somewhat for sure, yes. Not to the same degree, but somewhat.
Pause. If they put the fight on Netflix, would that change your answer of somewhat?
Yes. So if you could put it on Netflix, that changes, I think, the degree. The only thing I want to say is, what do you risk if Poatan gets smoked?
Right.
What do you risk there? That's the only part I can't quite figure out, because Mayweather, I know folks don't want to hear this, but Mayweather kind of carried McGregor early in that fight before just stomping his guts out later, but it made for a more thrilling environment. If Usyk did something like that for Poatan, I don't need to see this fight, but in those scenarios, do I think that's something TKO could and maybe even should consider? Yes, I do. I think that would be something kind of interesting to go to. Sort of a foregone conclusion about the result, but what it could do. Listen, MMA needs stars, and even if in a losing effort, if it makes Poatan's star power bigger, I don't know what the problem with that would be.
I'm with you. And what do you think about this? It is somewhat connected to this, because Francis Ngannou is a Saudi guy, right? He's a Turkey guy. Definitely a Turkey guy.
Yes.
Does he get brought into the TKO universe if they consolidate the three sports like it looks like they're doing? Could you do not only him against John Jones in MMA if it still mattered, but like, what if he boxed Poatan? You know what I mean? It's like, is Francis a playable character in a new world where TKO owns everything?
I don't think so. I think if we know anything about the UFC, when they go scorched earth, they don't go back. They scorch it and then salt it, and that's the end of it. You know, I don't think there's any way back for him.
All right.
Simple as that. Okay. And with that is our top 5. BC, I hand the show over to you.
Thank you very much. Red, you hanging in there, bud? There we go. Okay, you know what we do? We give you an email address, because every Friday, if you hit up, of course, morningcombat@gmail.com, you've got an opportunity to dead wrong us or send in your fan subs. Put yourself in our universe. Get on the show. We start, though, with the toughest segment of the week. Usually Daz is getting up in that ass as he's telling us what we said wrong. You better have timestamps and you better come original. This one's called Dead Wrong.
Dead Wrong.
All right, I'm good with that graphic. I like it. Is that Gaff's voice again?
No, not a Gaff production there.
Whose voice is that, Long Island?
I don't know. I'm thinking it's AI. I don't know who it is.
All right. Here we go. Our first one is from Tom. He says, "Hey, Luke, I've watched the show for years, and I've been letting you slide on this dead wrong just as long as it's a point you've made repeatedly throughout the years. This week, there was a DM from Donks from a fan named Liam. Every time the name Liam is mentioned, you make the point that this person must not be an American, and then he's most likely Irish. A fair assumption. Liam is an Irish name, after all. However, Liam has actually been the most common name given to American males for something like 8 out of the last 9 years."
Yeah, this is a thing people say that doesn't end up bearing out in reality whatsoever.
Well, I have, my kids are 17, but in the last 10 years, they were in middle and elementary school. A lot of Liams, Luke, I'll tell you that much. But he closes by saying there are roughly the same amount of Liams in the U.S. as there are Lukes. Hope you enjoyed your onomastics lesson. Keep up the good work, guys. What do you have to say to Tom? Do you have anything to say to him, Luke?
Yeah, I just don't believe that.
I wanted to pop in quick when he said there's as many Liams as there are Lukes. Growing up, my best friend's name was Liam, and obviously my name is Luke. I mean, there's plenty of Liams.
Oh,
it's amazing. It's very interesting that you had British friends on Long Island.
Nah, he's born and raised on Long Island.
Well, it's all connected
Irish
to the Commonwealth there. But Luke, are you unable to take L's anymore, or are you just passionate that you won the last 2 debates?
No, I don't imagine that I'm convincing the world, but I'm sorry, I just don't believe that Liam is as popular here as people want us to believe. I don't believe that.
Okay. All right. There was once an Asian barber named Jamal, but that's a story for another time.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, what are we doing?
Hey, Let's hear from Dan. He says, "Hey, Luke, over the last 2 weeks or so while doing MK, as well as your personal channel, you said that Nasruddin Imavov is 28 years old. You've said it approximately 375,000 times. However, all online resources show his birth date as being March 1st, 1995.
That's not true.
Making him
wrong.
29 and turning 30 in less than a month. Get your facts straight, brother."
He's wrong. I've looked this up and had to look at. He's not. This is absolutely wrong. Hold on. Let me pull this up.
Okay. You got receipts?
I'm gonna. What's that? What's the game Uno where you have like the reverse card? You know?
Yes. Yeah. Hit him with the reverse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nasruddin Imavov was born 1996 March 1, which makes him 28 years old.
What website is that? Because SureDog has 95. Just
Tapology, who I trust much more than SureDog. So please lick the backside of my balls and tell me what it tastes like. Thank you very much.
Wow. Okay. Swallow my pelotes is what Luke says to you, Dan. Hey, Dan, take that reverse L. Unless maybe he's right, Luke, and you're just on a bad
Unless
run.
his name is Liam, which I'm sure it wouldn't be unless he was from across the pond.
Hey, Luke, we've got one here from a fella named Daz, right?
Back up on that ass. You know it.
Yeah, motherfuckers. Okay. Daz says aloha donks on the 312 pregame preview episode at about 26:20. BC and discussing Strickland's resume. If he wins, says, quote, "If he becomes a 2-division champion and adds DDP to the list of guys that he beat, this is building a sneaky great resume." While I see your point, I'm pretty sure you meant to say 2-time middleweight champion, not 2-division champion, though Sean did previously weigh 170, Daz says. Daz says, "I enjoyed the return of the man in the hat. Also, BC, don't know why you guys keep trying to make Telvin Kipapa and I fight. All love for my Hawaii guys and girls." Okay, Daz. Both Daz and Telvin were vehemently against bare knuckle fighting in the Lava Shack parking lot under MK Promotions. You know?
It's like, what is MK Promotions? It's like Rough and Rowdy from Barstool, only sadder.
Do you remember when we did the London live show and we were literally pitching an idea on how to break the Jay Paquette and David Appleton tie for Donk of the Year? And like there was a group of people that were like, "Dude, what if they just fight on the stage?" You know what I mean? Like, what if they just fight to the death? I
don't think we came up with that idea. So
I
much
definitely
as you
had
came
that
up
one.
with that idea.
It was one of my ideas, you know, like, but okay, yeah, there you go. I thought a trivia challenge could work, but you know, for insurance purposes, they're like, Appy may show his piece, you know what I mean? And we can't have that. All right, thank you very much. Regarding, I take the L on that. Look, when we do pregame preview, we have some substances. You know, it's
what we do.
That's what we do. All right, our last dead wrong comes from a fella named Daz, right? Same guy. He says on Monday's show, while discussing where Dricus Duplessis sits in the pantheon of champions at 185, Luke correctly states that, like Rich Franklin, DDP has 2 title defenses. However, Luke stated these defenses came against Evan Tanner and David Loiseau. LT, that is only half correct. Franklin won the title against Tanner. He defended against Nate Quarry and
that's right.
David Loiseau.
That's right. Good call. I'll take that L. That L.
Bad recall for fights that happened 20 years ago. And he adds, shout out to Bong Island Luke for his No Bets Barred appearance with Jed Meshew on the MMA Fighting Podcast. Thanks for all the content. Mahalo. Daz, did you hear about this? Jed Meshew and Luke Nocita tip to tip. Did you hear it?
Yeah, they're having sex.
Yeah. Consensual.
Yeah. Well done. Well played. Thank you, Daz, for calling us out. Thank you very much. You can hit us up at morningcombat@gmail.com. If you believe we have said something in error or acted a fool or you're offended by us, bring it. Our final segment is you putting your wife in tight MK t-shirts while you visit areas of the world. And maybe Average Joe Art making a return. This one's called Fan Submissions.
You've got mail.
Viewers.
The iconic voice of Gaffney Jim Pierre right there. All right, let's hit it from Bob. He says, "What's up, guys? This is Bob from Atlanta. Wanted to send my condolences Luke's way. I also lost my dog / best friend recently and have turned to art as my therapy."
Wow.
I know we are art fans, so I wanted to share this handmade painting I made in hopes to help lift Luke and his family during this tough time. If Luke would like this painting, just send me location and I'm happy to ship it on over.
Man, I would love this one. Let me take a screen. Leave it up because I want to send this to my wife. Yeah. Hey, Long Island Luke, can we get this sent to the studio or not?
Yeah, we could definitely make that happen.
Yeah, I would love this painting. I am moved by this, man. That's incredible.
Yeah,
that is
thank you,
incredible.
Bob. And Bob, that's some serious art right there, and especially when art is fueled by this much love and grace and care. That's good shit. That's some Bushido. That's what I'm talking about.
That's amazing, man. They really got, he got Barbas's face, obviously. He got Lola's face really well too.
Yeah.
Man. I miss him, bro. I miss him.
Yeah, I would definitely go fishing with Bob before the meth, of course. But let's keep this going. This is Average Joe Art. You remember him, right? He was the Donk of the Year. He says, wanting to send something new inspired by Luke's recent art exhibit experience. I hope the MK fans can enjoy some good old-fashioned fan subs while wait on the next wave of MK merch. Tried to make these as accurate as possible with Luke's tats, and each of you wearing clothing inspired by the ones you love very much. You two have now been Super Wash Dads, Ninja Turtles, Beavis and Butthead characters, Scooby-Doo, Trolls, Dragon Ball, and now Lego figures. Perhaps in 2025, excuse me, it's time to explore those 90s movies that BC loves to quote so much and that I'm incredibly fond of. That's a threat right there from Average Joe Art, Luke. Look at this, brick to brick. So am I wearing a what does that say? Under
Zabit Forever.
Oh, that is, oh my God, that's beautiful. That is,
it was reminiscent of that. Like, remember you for like the Michael Chiesa interview in Vegas, you wore like all white, like a sperm cell.
Your hat also is a heart with 115 written in it.
Oh God, that's so.
Wait, what does the 115 signify?
Strawberry.
Oh, women.
OnlyFans, yeah. Oh wow, thank you, Average.
And dude, look,
Joe
another Barbas shirt. This is beyond incredible.
No, I think that's a Chewbacca. No, is that?
No,
Barbas?
that's Barbas, bro.
Wow,
that's Barbas.
Wow. Okay, so what do you think about Average Joe Art teasing, a hand in the future of the MK merch? I mean, this could be a.
We could use his help. This
could be the greatest merger since Mark and Montana De La Rosa, right? No one talks about them in the MMA power couple, rankings, right?
I guess I don't, but that is a great piece of work. Thank you, Average Joe. That is unbelievable. I'm going to send that one to my wife as well.
We have another fan sub from NMBR1 Bullshit Guy. He says, I had heard rumors of the Global Fight League beginning construction of an Apex style facility to host.
Hold on, did you see that they're going to have Shogun fight Yoel Romero? Dude, putting Shogun in a fight in 2025 should be a crime. It should be a crime.
But I'm shamelessly into Rockhold Weidman 2.
Yeah, not quite crime territory, but that one's going to end badly.
What do you think about Uriah Hall against Douglas Lima? I kind of also don't hate that.
I don't hate that one as much, although Lima has certainly seen better days.
Yeah, been the star of many plays. All right, so to close here from number one Bullshit Guy, he says rumors of GFL opening their own Apex facility to host their geriatric bum fights. And this past weekend, I snapped a picture of the site location in Central Florida. Thanks. As always. So that is a dumpster in Central Florida with the initials GFL on it. Luke.
That just looks like Florida, bro. That is like, when I think of Florida, this is what I think of right here.
So Luke, real quick on GFL. Hey, Darren Owen, drop the team shit. We don't want that. But even though some of these matchups that you're teasing are gross, I think people will be into them, Luke. Like, we've never really had a Legends League. Never. I mean, Bellator.
We did have a Legends League and it tanked.
Which one was that?
Bellator.
Oh, that's what I said. Yeah. So besides that season when Bellator was specializing in that, it could work for a bit. I don't know.
It's not going to work. Look at me. It's not going to work.
Will they ever have show number one?
They might have some shows. And look, I'm not going to say like the fights will all be bad or like they won't do like good numbers in terms of viewership, but in terms of making money and staying in business, I've never seen a bigger guaranteed failure than this one. This one was dude, you could just go out and just jerk off into a pile of money, set it on fire, and that's going to be a more effective use.
I mean that you could remove the masturbation from that specific equation. I think it still hits the point, but I think Schaub's going to be one of the broadcasters, so hopefully that.
All right.
I want to see people work, Luke. I want to see this industry, fueled. We'll see.
They're not calling me. I can tell you that.
All right. I mean, look, if you need me to do something on the Weidman Rockhold 2 fight, I'll be in. I got a Weidman Rockhold 2 poster right here, Luke. Okay, on the wall. That's what I'm talking about.
Wait, no, Weidman Rockhold 1.
No, I got the UFC 199 Part 2 poster right here.
No way.
I also have the Khabib versus Max Holloway UFC 223 poster and the canceled Rockhold versus Robert Whittaker Australia one.
I found in my drawer the other day my MGM key card for my room during Maymac. So I have the Maymac plastic room key that I took from MGM and never returned.
I have we've seen it before, Luke. RDA versus Conor McGregor, UFC 196.
Hold it a little higher, Eso. Yeah, that's crazy.
That is a relic. A piece, along with what our friends at MMA On Point, when I won in that game, this Alexei Olenek card, which is just fantastic, Luke. Okay, it's great.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you. All right. Alan W is here with a fan sub. Remember that guy, Luke? He's a treasure. Alan W.
Yes, he is.
He says, "Hey, Donks, I made a super heavyweight bracket before, but this time I made a super bantamweight bracket to put in perspective how well will Inoue do against the best 122s of all time. The idea of Inoue jumping to fight Tank Davis is laughable. 122, and you can argue 126 will be Inoue's cap anyway. I have my winner in mind, but I'd like to know BC's opinion on who would win these prime versus prime matchups at 122 pounds. Luke, that's a hell of a bracket right there, right? Holy crap.
You're talking about legends only, bro.
God, Wilfredo Vasquez could punch too against Barrera. Wilfredo Gomez. Oh my God. Rigo. Come on. All right. Who is coming out here at 122?
I think Nonito beats Vasquez.
Yes, I agree with you on that.
I think Inoue beats Morales.
Yeah, but I would give, and of all these fights, that's the fight that I'm sitting in the front row and maxing out my credit card.
So that, and we already know Inoue has fought Donaire twice, so we kind of know how that one goes. So Inoue wins the left bracket. The right bracket,
yeah, but he never fought prime Donaire. Let's be fair about that, okay? He never fought number 3 pound for pound Donaire.
I still think Inoue is your winner, but the right side of the bracket, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah, dude. To answer the question, I think Inoue might actually win this at 122. Yeah, I think he would, and that's crazy because these are all time. I mean, obviously him against prime 122 Guillermo Rigondeaux would be the ultimate style clash to see what would happen. When we finally got Loma versus Rigo, we got it 2 divisions too high. Rigo was old. He gave up when it got hard. But that's an interesting offer there from good old Alan W. Luke, we saw some updates under the screen here from Long Island Luke, but he mentioned that the Gordon Ruzabiov fight is canceled but Gordon did make weight and everybody else made weight. Thank you, Luke. Coffee Talk No Seda. We've got one more fan sub from Ben Dover. It's a video.
But you have to say this middleweight division's hot.
It is,
and I'm
fun,
excited.
Man.
But one thing though that Tatiana Suarez said this week, that the real main event is the co-main event. Would you guys agree with her in terms of your interest level, or is that false?
I love the fight. I don't think it's going to hold more interest for the broader audience, but
do
it
you
might
say broader as a way to like sneakily say the female audience? Like, I don't understand. Look, which one do you care about more, the fan in you, and seeing the result of? Or seeing it happen?
I honestly don't care, in the sense that if Strickland wins, him versus Hamzat is going to be...
No, I'm talking about main or co-main.
What do you mean? I mean, it's deserved. It's deserved. What can I say? It's deserved. What can I say? I say?
We are under the heavy influence of things during that program.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sober there. You got to cut me a little break.
I mean, you're arguably really not sober there, really. So yeah,
but that's a fair point. I am sorry that I wasn't a better listener for that and many other times, but hopefully today was a little bit better.
Yeah, we had a great show today. Those will wrap up the fan subs and dead rungs. But final reminder, morningcombat@gmail.com. Tell Mikey we said hi. Do not take a selfie of your genitalia. Thank you very much.
Take a picture of your balls and dick and send it to
so gross.
address, please.
Disgusting. But wow, what a great show, Luke. And hopefully they end racism in combat sports. But whatever, we'll see what happens. Dude, tonight, you got to watch this fight. It's gonna be good. Keyshawn Davis, I'm interested in that. Are you must see TV on Cannonier, or are you just gonna catch it when you catch it?
I'm taking the fam to New York City this weekend for a little bit of a getaway trip. So yeah. So no, I'll watch it after the fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Enjoy it. Be safe and enjoy, Luke.
Long Island Luke, are you going to do main card minute and be the boyfriend of the year again, or how's this going to go?
Hey. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be live 7:00 main card. Join me and Gaff main card minute. Thank you.
I was thinking about this, BC. The card next week, not this one tomorrow, obviously, but the one next week, the boxing card.
Yeah,
dude, like every fight is a fucking banger. I might do a 7 or 8 hour broadcast for that. I'm not even doing a bit. Like I'm thinking about calling in some reinforcements and then doing that.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, that's going to be a fantastic card. And then we've got Tank the next weekend after that. Tank Roach. So what a time. Let's go. Big time boxing.
Bang, Tui. Let's bang. All right. As a reminder, like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're also everywhere on social. We also have our own YouTube channels. Of course, you can get the Brian Campbell Experience or just mine, Luke Thomas. Go and check out all of the stuff that goes there. Enjoy the fights tomorrow. Reach the show, as you already saw, morningcombat@gmail.com. Enjoy the fights tonight as well if you're going to watch some boxeo. And then tomorrow, UFC. We'll be back with a show on Monday. We will not be in studio, but we will have one to react to everything this Monday as well. So catch us live at 11 a.m. on Monday. BC, anything else before we go?
Catch me outside. How about that? And much love, Reggie Jackson. We're in this battle. Let's go.
Yes.
Let's go. Okay, Team Reggie. Let's go.
Send all of our best wishes to Team Reg. We hope he gets better. Let us know. And until then, we're done. That's BC. I'm LT. This has been MK. Until next time, may all of your gains be loyal.